There's a property on the market right now for $17 million. 90 acres, 3 parcels, a quarter mile of the Potomac River frontage. After studying the survey for hours, I realized almost nobody is actually looking at the right thing. The house isn't the asset, the land is. And I'm going to show you exactly why this distinction is worth millions. I am not the listing agent. I wasn't involved in marketing this property. It's currently listed by Sharon Brown of Washington Fine Properties. I pulled the county survey, Loudoun County tax records, parcel information, and reviewed the publicly marketed listing to understand why this property is being offered at $17 million. Everything you're about to see from this point forward is my own analysis and my own opinion. Here's the stakes. Most people scroll past a number like 17 million and either say that's insane or it must be worth it because it's expensive. Both of these are lazy answers. Neither one explains anything. By the end of the video, you're going to understand exactly what makes 90 contiguous acres like this nearly impossible to replace in this market, what actually drives that number, and what I'd build if it were mine. But before we get into any of that, you need to see what's exactly sitting on this land, because it's not just a house and some trees. There's a detail buried in this listing that most people are scrolling right past. Buried in this listing, one line: former private airport. Read that again. Not a barn, not a pole shed, a private airstrip. When I compared the recorded survey and the aerial imagery, you can still trace out the former grass runway across the property. It's no longer presented as an operating airstrip, but it says a lot about the size, openness, and history of this land. Then there's the pond. The listing describes it as spring-fed, and the recorded survey shows it as a long-standing feature of the property. Then the river, a quarter mile of direct Potomac frontage with an existing concrete boat ramp already cut into the bank. Not a shared community dock down the street, a private ramp on the property that's been there since the survey was first drawn up. And then the part that actually matters for how this land can be used. 3 separate legal parcels. Together, they're marked roughly as 90 acres. Those separate parcels may provide additional flexibility for a future owner. What can ultimately be built still depends on the applicable zoning, engineering, environmental review, and county approvals. And here's the thing, none of that is actually the reason this land is worth what it's asking. The runway, the pond, the river frontage, all of it is impressive. But the real driver of the price is something almost nobody talks about when they cover land like this. It's coming up in about 90 seconds. This property sits 4 miles from Amazon GWU Ashburn campus, 4 miles from the regional park, a short drive from the Route 28 tech corridor, and one of the densest concentrations of data center infrastructures on the entire East Coast. Loudoun County has spent the last 30 years turning farmland into subdivisions, one parcel at a time. Every time a large tract gets divided, it's gone permanently. You can't reassemble 90 contiguous acres once it's been split up into 40 lots and sold off individually. The land doesn't just come back together, ever. So think about what's actually happening here. You got a property that's simultaneously 4 miles from a $1 trillion tech campus, minutes from Dulles, close enough to Washington, D.C. to matter for defense contractors and government agencies, and it's still completely private. No shared driveways, no neighbors visible from the water, private airstrip, nobody flown in years. Normally, those two things don't coexist. As an area develops, privacy disappears. Here, growth surrounded this property on every side and somehow never touched it. That's not common, not even close to common. Which brings up the actual question I couldn't stop chasing while I was researching. If the land is really the asset, not the house, what's the math behind it? What's the house actually worth compared to the dirt it's sitting on? That comparison surprised me, and it's coming up right now. Take two identical houses, same architecture, same square footage, same finishes, same construction, cost to build. Put one of them on a single acre subdivision, put the other on 90 acres with a quarter mile of Potomac River frontage. Construction costs, basically the same on paper. The value is not even in the same universe. Here's why. Buildings are a depreciating asset. From the day they're finished, roofs wear out, mechanical systems age, flooring plans go out of style. What buyers wanted 20 years ago isn't what they want now. And that'll be true again in another 20. Land doesn't work that way. The Potomac River isn't going out of style. A Springfield pond isn't becoming obsolete. 90 contiguous acres in one of the fastest growing counties in Virginia are not getting easier to assemble. They're getting harder every single year that passes. This is exactly why comparable sales barely function on a property like this. Every comp you pull is missing a piece. More acreage, but no river frontage. A better house, but a fraction of the land. River frontage, but landlocked behind every parcel. But landlocked behind other parcels with no privacy. No pond, no airstrip history, no 3-parcel flexibility. Eventually, you start comparing houses and you start comparing collections of characteristics that don't overlap with anything else on the market. That's the actual answer to why $17 million. You're not buying a house with acreage attached. You're buying scarcity. And scarcity in a growing metro area only moves in one direction. Which brings up the question this whole video was actually built around. If this were mine, all 90 acres, all 3 parcels, the river, the pond, the runway, what would I actually build here? I have a real answer. And it's not the answer you'd expect from a real estate agent trying to maximize a number. Before I show you this, one important note. What you're about to see is my personal concept based on publicly available records and my own research. It's not affiliated with the seller, Sharon Brown, Washington Fine Properties, or Loudoun County. And it is not an approved development plan. Any real project here would need to go through zoning, engineering, environmental review, and the county approval process. This is simply my answer to one question. If I had these 90 acres, what would I build? This is my concept for this exact 90 acres. Here's my concept for the exact 90 acres broken into 5 pieces. 20 acres for a private legacy compound. The existing estate stays as the anchor, sitting right on the pond with 2 additional guest homes built around it. A place designed for multiple generations of one family to actually be together instead of scattered across separate properties. A 200-foot natural tree buffer, separating that private compound from everything else on the land. So none of what comes next ever feels like it's encroaching. 5 acres for a small community center, a bakery, coffee shop, a market, a fitness space, a meeting hall, an outdoor amphitheater, small scale, walkable, built for people actually living on the property. 20 acres for 4 small villages of tiny homes, purpose-built for veterans. Circular layout, walkable streets, shared green space at the center of each village. Not isolated units tucked into a back corner of a land, but an actual neighborhood with dignity built into the design. 45 acres, half of the entire property, permanently protected as riverfront. Trails through the woods, kayak launch, a fishing overlook, 1 private dock, left alone. Not developed now, not developed later, not developed by whoever owns it in 50 years. Would that produce the highest financial return available on this land? Probably not. Someone else might look at these same 90 acres and envision a completely different future. Whether any concept, mine or someone else's, could actually be built would be dependent on zoning, engineering, environmental review, infrastructure, and county approvals. This isn't my prediction of what will happen. It's simply my vision for what this property could become. Here's what I want you to actually take away from this. Next time you see an eye-popping price tag on a piece of real estate, stop asking whether the house is worth it. Ask what happens to the land if the house disappears tomorrow. If the land is still exceptional, once you strip the building away, that's where the real value lives. That's what you're actually paying for. Beautiful homes get built every day, all over this country. 90 contiguous acres on the Potomac River, 4 miles from a trillion-dollar tech campus, with a private runway, a quarter-mile of untouched shoreline. That doesn't get built. It either survives or gets divided and is gone for good. This was your 90 acres. What would you actually build? Maximize the return, preserve it exactly as it is today, or try to land somewhere in between like I did. Tell me below. I read every single comment.